I'm Bethany. Thank you for watching. Today I am making a wall hang and I'm calling it African Mudcloth Wall Art. It's pretty universal as far as decorating styles. You can pick the colors you want. You're going to pick fabric on the back. It needs to either have a texture to it or a little bit of detail that makes it interesting. You don't want just a solid color. It's okay if it has a small print to it. It needs to not be too bold so that you can see the embroidery when you do it. But you definitely want your fabric to have some sort of interesting element to it. It's great if you can figure out how to get a hold of something you like that's repurposed fabric. You could go to Goodwill and find a shirt that you like, or you could use an old skirt or a dress or something that you already have. Would be wonderful. And if not, you can go to the craft store and you can pick out some fabric. In my example here, I did this pattern twice because it worked well with the fabric underneath. You can do as many of these as you want, as many rows. I will have linked to the video patterns to cut out. You're just going to print it on cardstock. Some of the supplies you will need are cardstock, or you could just freehand draw the patterns. You'll need some of this rope that I got at the hardware store. You'll need some kind of wire. It could be floral wire, it could be craft wire, it could be wire from the hardware store. Embroidery floss, an embroidery hoop, which you can find them at thrift stores a lot, or you can go to the craft store and use a coupon. You'll want to use either a hot glue gun, or if your embroidery hoop is metal, you'll want to use super glue. You can use cardstock to print the patterns on. In this video I'm going to show you, because I'm going to have a hen party and do this with lots of people for the craft, I'm actually using the blank stencil that I got at the craft store. That way I can reuse it and lots of people can use it and it's nice and sturdy. But you could just use regular paper, printing paper. You'll want a small hole punch. You could probably get away with a large one. Then you'll want scissors, nice and sharp. You'll need a fine tip Sharpie. So the first thing you're going to do is print out the templates that I have, unless you want to do it freehand. And go ahead and cut out the strip that you want. You're going to use the hole puncher to punch a hole at the end of every one of those lines on the pattern. So you can see how I punched a hole at the ends of each line. And now I'm going to cut along each side of those lines. So I'm just going to trim it in here. Make sure your scissors are sharp. And there I have a nice line to use as a guide. And this doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, you want it to look handmade. You don't want it to look like it came from a machine. You don't want it to be ugly. Really bad. But if you print out my stencils and just do your best, but you don't need to obsess over whether or not it's perfect. The next thing we want to do is take your embroidery hoop and loosen it up, and you're going to take your fabric and put it over top of the one that doesn't have the fastener, the tightener on the top, and squeeze it in there. Make sure that it's the direction that you want it to go. I like this line here, but I want it to go across, so I'm going to change it because this is going to be the top of the project. Alright, once you have it the way you want it to be, make it as tight as you can, and then go ahead and give that fabric one last tug to make sure it's nice and tight. And then we're going to flip it over, and I'm going to trim it with about 1 inch of fabric all the way around the outside. Then I'm going to use my hot glue gun, and you want to tip the embroidery hoop up, and you're going to put glue on the bottom. You don't want the glue to hit the back of your fabric because depending on the kind of fabric you have, it'll change the color a little bit. So I'm just putting glue on the wood and pinching the fabric over. And this will do two things. Obviously it'll look prettier on the front, and it will also keep the project nice and taut. Now I'm going to take my pattern that I made, and you're going to decide what do you want the center to be. Make sure you decide, okay, if it cuts something off on the side, make sure you're okay with that. So I don't want these little lines here to get cut off. I'd rather have the crosses in the middle. So once you have it the way you want it, use a marker that is either close to your fabric color or close to your embroidery floss color. I'm going to use black embroidery floss, and I've got the white fabric, so I wouldn't want to use a red marker. You're just going to go from dot to dot, or punched hole to punched hole, and you're just drawing one simple line. And this shouldn't take very long. Make sure your other hand is keeping it really straight. If you're nervous about the stencil moving, you could use some tape. And there's my pattern that I'm going to follow. And if I wanted to, I could do another one, or I could add a little bit more. You know, I might do that. And I'm going to use my embroidery floss, a needle that's big enough to be able to put all of the pieces of floss, which I think there are 6 in each. And you're gonna wanna lick it. No, you're gonna wanna wet it a little bit. And then what I do is I squeeze it really tight with my nails so that it's really flat. And it slips right through that needle head. If you're having trouble, find a kid to do it, or get a needle with a bigger needle head. And then you'll just put a knot in the other end. What I usually do is make a circle, bring it back under, and bring it back under again. So I went through that circle 2 times so I can have a little bit of a fatter knot so it doesn't want to pull through my fabric. Just enjoy creating your embroidery project. Start on one side, cover up each one of those lines that you drew. Stay in the same area as you're working. As you're working, make sure you pull your extra piece so that you're not accidentally doubling up. You don't want this to get here and then you're working and then you get to the end and you realize, oh, I forgot to pull on this to choke up on the floss. As far as choosing colors, you really just need to think about where you're going to put this and what colors are going to coordinate with your goals. If you're making this as a gift for someone, keep it more neutral for sure. There are probably about 200 colors of floss at the store that you could pick from. When you get to the end of a piece of floss, what I do is I pull them apart, 3 strands on one side, 3 on the other, and then I just tie a knot, or a double knot, I guess. So now that I'm finished with the embroidery, I'm going to add the rope. You can make this rope whatever length you want it to be. It can be short, or it can be really long and hang longer like that. You do want it to kind of match the scale of the embroidery hoop that you pick, so you don't want it to look overbearing. If you want a big piece of artwork, get a bigger embroidery hoop. Cut the rope the length that you want. Well, we don't want the ends of the rope to fray, so we're just gonna do a little bit of hot glue to keep it together. And don't fuss with it, because if you do, it'll turn white and gummy. So do that to both sides. Kind of push it in there. Then you'll want to find the middle of the rope, right here, and you're going to find the bottom middle of the project and glue it right there. Make sure that it cools. And then you're only going to put the glue from the bottom to the very edges. So at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Then we are going to bring those two tops together and put a little bit of glue about an inch from the top to connect them. And make sure that as you're holding this that it's okay if the tops don't match. Right now we can trim it and fix it, but you want to make sure that this is hanging not lopsided. Okay, then we're gonna cut about 2 feet of some kind of wire. The more wire you have, obviously the easier you'll be able to see it. You can pick any color of wire. You just want to start wrapping about 1 inch to 2 inches from the top with the wire. And then once you've done that on the back side, go ahead and hit it one more time with some hot glue. Get it in there so it's not going anywhere. And then I like kind of separating these on the top a little bit so that when they hang, it looks cool. And I definitely don't like having one side longer than the other, so I'm going to recut it and re-glue it. And then when you hang it, you're gonna put your nail right there. And that's it. So I hope you liked my video and that you click like and subscribe and share it with your friends. And I hope that you make some beautiful artwork and are encouraged to have other people over and make beautiful artwork with them. Enjoy a nice evening with food and craft and share the sweetness of creativity.